Enough! It's time for Jordan Peterson to clean his own room by Candace Owens.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Pope is still above ground. He is sitting in a casket, being visited by mourners. We haven't even entered the official period of mourning yet, because his funeral has not yet taken place. And yet Jordan Peterson is showing his ass right now over Christ is King. Why? Why is the period of Lent to Easter always like
You better watch it, bucko. Keep my name out your fucking mouth.
this every year? This is why we cannot have nice things. Jordan Peterson is the reason why we can't have nice things.
The GOAT.
I want you to know that. Today, by the way, is the Feast of St. George, and feast we shall on Dr. Jordan Peterson. I'm kidding, obviously, or kind of kidding, not really kidding, but I was admittedly...
Say it with your chest, Candace. God! Let me just tiptoe around my criticism.
Early, you will recall, to recognizing that there were just some issues that were presenting regarding Dr. Jordan Peterson. And the issue that I am referring to is that there seemed to be this apparent delta between who he tells us we should be in the form of his lectures and his books and who he actually is.
Okay? I mean, 12 rules for life, maps for meaning. I bet you didn't read either of them.
This is known as the those who can't teach or those who can't do, rather, teach doctrine, right?
Candace Owens married a man within 17 days, by the way. If you know, you know, I guess.
So you can't do it yourselves in your life, but you constantly tell people what they should be doing in their lives, right? The things that you
How is she 10 years late on this criticism?
can't accomplish in your own life. And an example of that would be his smash book, the one that catapulted him into an international celebrity, 12 Rules of Life. And this book was about order. He was telling people how to order their lives in the chaotic world that we are in. And it did a lot of good for young men. There's no question about that. I think people should forever buy his book because what they took out of it was very meaningful. And it was at a time when it wasn't...
Glaze. She's glazing him.
Fun to be a man at all, right? I mean, I feel like
It was actually illegal to be a man. Nietzsche talks about this.
Constantly getting bashed over the head because we were in this phase of toxic femininity. You know, it was like the Me Too movement. Men are terrible, toxic masculinity. And then you had people that rose to the surface and said to men basic things that did have a lot of meaning, like clean your room, right? Like that was one of the...
That's right. I mean, it's a simple, actionable step that everyone can take. You don't need money to clean your room. Just clean your fucking room, bucko.
Big thing. Jordan Peterson was walk like a lobster and also clean your room. And that was for good reason. Take a listen to him.
What I've recommended to people is clean up your room. That's a good start. Organize your local landscape. Schedule your time. Start taking control of yourself. See if you can stop saying things you know to be lies. That's not the same as telling the truth. You don't get to do that to begin with because you're not good enough at it to even attempt it in some sense. But everyone can stop saying things they know to be falsehoods.
Agreed. Totally agreed with that. But you know what? His own house, his own office didn't look so tidy when he did various interviews from home. For example, this video where he was interviewed.
Well, that's where I was in the belly of the beast. Nietzsche talks about nihilism, but Zoomers call it the black pill. Oh, I don't wish it upon my worst enemy, bucko.
Interviewing someone named Theron Meyer, who he described as a reasonable trans person back in 2016. That's Jordan Peterson's office. That doesn't look like a tidy room. Whatever. That's not a big deal. I'm just pointing out there's little cracks in the mirror that began to appear.
I mean, God forbid I show my true fucking colors. That's not a criticism. Maybe bro was having a bad day. Maybe he was having a shitty week. I don't know.
There's rule number 8, like he just said, tell the truth or at least don't lie. Rule number 10, be precise in your speech. But does he actually embody any of that himself? As I had mentioned in that previous episode, everything was all very well and good until people began to have questions about Jordan's behavior and some of the confusing narratives which were used to justify or to simply excuse his behavior. There was always an excuse, right? And most notorious among them, obviously, he will go down in history remembered for Apple Cider Gate. Now, if you are not a Jordan Peterson fan, Maybe you're a woman, you never really followed his stuff. Of course, you know his name. Apple Cider Gate was...
Listen, all I care about is if he cleaned it eventually. Are you never allowed to have a dirty room? In fact, cleaning your room is only possible if your room is dirty. So in fact, he was following his own advice.
Was something that happened on Joe Rogan's podcast. And the background of that, before he went on Joe Rogan's podcast, he was having sort of these series of debates with Sam Harris. They were matched up to debate God and truth and atheism, which in and of itself was quite confusing because, well, Jordan Peterson, despite the fact that he speaks about God a lot, has never declared himself to be a Christian. So he's debating an atheist, but is he an atheist? He's debating truth. What does he actually believe? And he has definitely, at least I would say, elected himself as an academic leader of faith. And that, again, can register as quite confusing because we don't know what he believes when it comes to religion. But Jordan, like a true academic that he is, does not like being challenged in any capacity.
Is that true? I feel like Jordan was always Christian coded.
He considers himself to be an expert. And I'll give you an example of that, of him losing it on the audience because they applauded something that Sam Harris said back in 2018 when he pressed him on the topic of his own religion. Take a look.
But from a clinical psychology standpoint, where he's studied the great philosophers as well, Nietzsche's critical of Christianity. I'm sure it's a complex issue.
What I fear about the way you talk about religion is that at the end of all these conversations, I'm still not sure what you believe on that point, frankly. And if I'm not sure, no one out there is.
Well, I don't know why you would expect to be sure about what someone believes. How do you think that any one of you are capable of fully articulating what you believe? You certainly aren't. You are not. That's completely ridiculous. You're not transparent to yourself by any stretch of the imagination. Well, you act out all sorts of things that you can't articulate.
But how about a best guess? Yeah.
You know, if you look, let's go all cognitive neuroscience on this, shall we? 99% of your processing is unconscious. You're not capable of articulating yourselves. If you were, you'd be omniscient. Okay, but don't give me any nonsense about that.
Absolutely mogged. Yo.
All right. Okay. Don't give him any nonsense about that. Don't ask him to clarify.
Was Candace always Christian? I feel like she hopped on the Christianity wave pretty late. The signaling.
What he believes in the topic of religion while he's debating the topic. At any rate, after a series of these appearances.
He's like a Jungian Christian. It is strange. Well, he loves Jung.
Appearances and discussions with Sam Harris. Jordan went on to Joe Rogan and kind of halfway explained that he hadn't been feeling well in some other discussions where they were kind of going round and round and he was unable to give a basic definition of what truth was. And the reason that he gave to the public was that he was going through an unusual medical episode, which indeed involved apple cider. Take a listen.
One of the things that both Michaela and I noticed was that when we restricted our diet and then ate something we weren't supposed to, the reaction to eating what we weren't supposed to was absolute.
Do you think Michaela Peterson is the downfall of Jordan Peterson? Some people hold that view. My daughter Michaela, I mean.
Catastrophic.
What did you do? What did you switch to? Or what did you eat, rather?
Well, the worst response...
She sent him to get his brain broken. She did a lot of things. What didn't she do? Bro was getting milked in the CCP jelking room at one point.
I think we're allergic to, or allergic, whatever the hell this is, having an inflammatory response to something called sulfites. And we had some apple cider that had sulfites in it, and that was really not good. Like, I was done for a month. That was the first time I talked to Sam Harris.
You were done for a month?
Oh, yeah. It took me out for a month. It was awful.
Really?
Yeah. So I would say, look...
So this is right before this whole truth conversation with Sam Harris that got stuck in the mud. During.
So I think the day I talked to Sam was like the worst day of my life.
He got one-shotted by apple cider?
Not because of talking to Sam, but it was...
Just physically?
Oh, Jesus, I was so dead. But I didn't want to not do it because...
Apple cider? Like, what was it doing?
Sulfites in it.
What was it doing to you?
Oh, it produced an overwhelming sense of impending doom. And I seriously mean overwhelming. Like, there's no way I could have lived like that if that would have lasted for... See, Michaela knew by that point that it would probably only last a month, and I was like...
A month?
Yeah,
from
a month.
Cider?
Oh, I didn't sleep that month.
Yeah, bucko.
didn't sleep for 25 days. I didn't sleep
What?
at all. I didn't sleep at all for 25 days.
How is that possible? That
I'll
should
tell
kill
you how it's possible. You lay in bed, frozen in something approximating terror for 8 hours, and then you get up.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah, not
And
good.
this is
So
from cider. From cider.
that's what we thought. Yeah.
The whole sulfite thing is garbage. There are more sulfites in dried apricots than in a glass of wine or beer or cider or anything.
I'll admit I'm not an expert. I just know that apple cider is just an apple.
Let's just say I don't go to Jordan Peterson for health and nutrition advice.
Just an apple being juiced. And they don't add anything to it. It's just an apple. And I have never, prior to that discussion, heard of that
Bro just had the wrong Granny Smith.
sort of a reaction. Now, this conversation, to be clear, took place in 2018, okay? And then shortly thereafter, the official storyline got even more confusing for people that were fans of Jordan Peterson, and I counted myself among them. Officially, the public was told that Jordan had entered various rehabs from Toronto to New York to Russia to treat benzo addiction. That's what we were told.
Where did he get his apple from? The fucking witch from Snow White?
By the press, the New York Post, the New York Times. And then we were told from his daughter, Michaela, that it was not
My
an
daughter,
addiction,
Michaela?
but it was a dependency that came from a food diet that went awry, okay? I'm going to read this next portion directly because it's legitimately that confusing, and I don't want to face allegations that I'm not understanding things because I'm not an expert.
There's some strange things that happen with reduction diets that I know Michaela Peterson swears by. Essentially, the logic is that you start taking foods away from your diet that may be causing these micro-allergic and inflammation reactions to the point where you're only eating red meat. It's like, wow, I've never felt better. I've lost 55 pounds, I'm not bloated, I have a 12-pack, and I have a boner that won't go away. My skin cleared up? I don't know. Is there some truth to that? It can't be. That can't be real. The side effects include pissing out of my asshole forever. Molten hot lava.
This is directly from an article in the New York Times. They spoke directly with the Peterson family, and then this was widely reported. It reads, quote, Michaela, 28, her Russian husband, and Peterson began the diet in 2016, but all three had a violent sodium metabisulfite response. She said it was, quote, really awful, but it hit him the hardest.
This is what happens when you biohack way too hard.
Michaela told the Times. He couldn't stand up without blacking out. He had this impending sense of doom.
Dude was on a 25-day bender because of juicy juice. Well, you want your apple juice nice and warm? This is a self-inflicted error. This is a skill issue. Listen, he might have had some underlying medical condition that wasn't addressed and they just chalked it up to sulfite apple juice. Many such cases.
He wasn't sleeping. Peterson has previously claimed that he didn't sleep for 25 days during this time, but the longest period of human sleep deprivation
This shit is horoscope brain rot for science nerds.
that's ever been recorded is only 11 days. The paper notes. He was prescribed a low dose of antidepressants, which helped him recover. But the dosage was increased after Peterson sunk into a depression following his wife Tammy's cancer diagnosis. Quote, and things just fell apart insanely with Tammy. Every day was life and death. In the crisis for 5 months, Peterson
Canadian healthcare is so bad, they'd be going to Russia.
told the paper, the doctors said, well, she's contracted this cancer that is so rare, there's virtually no literature on it, and the 1-year fatality rate is 100%. So endless nights sleeping on the floor in the emergency.
Dude, I would beat it. 100% kill rate? Psh, not me.
And continual surgical complications. And then there's an ellipsis and says, so I took benzodiazepines. Okay, that is the full quotation. I'm reading it exactly.
Faded off the benzos.
We then learned that Tammy recovered from complications with a kidney surgery, but Peterson's drug dependency worsened.
They went to Russia because no doctor in the Western world would let someone go through benzo withdrawals in a coma.
Michaela says, quote, Dad started getting super weird. It manifested as extreme anxiety and suicidality. Michaela, who the Times...
Dude, I would probably have dark thoughts too if my daughter took a flight to Romania to hang out with Andrew Tate.
reports seems to have assumed full charge of his affairs. Okay, that's a lot to work through. There's anxiety medicine, there's antidepressant medicine, there's meat and greens and apple cider, which began it all. And I'm not kidding when I say I am not an expert, so I legitimately do not understand it at all, okay? With Peterson, there seems to be, ironically, in every situation that I have found, and I think that many of the young men who no longer follow him have found, never any accountability, always just something that only the experts can understand. And what I understand as a non-expert is addiction is an affliction that is a part of almost every single person's life that I know. I come from a family, and I grew up in a family with addicts.
The only thing I'm addicted to is getting that fucking paper. I mean, let's be real. My tours sell out. You're just mad because you're pocket watching.
That is going to, as a part of my growing up story, okay? These addicts don't have glossy degrees. They don't have extensive vocabularies. They don't have estates. So they'll forever just be known as addicts, not dependents, not from food, whatever it is. They're not flying to Russia. They're just addicts. And what I can say is that if you're wondering why, this is a moment, why there are so many non-experts that are registering to people as more truthful than those that are from the upper echelon of society. Take a look no further than Theo Von, okay? Theo Von, I'm just going to do the totally opposite description in the press, went and sat across from President Trump and discussed his past addictions like this. Take a listen.
How did you get addicted? How did?
No, I would just do cocaine. That was really, yeah. So not just, yeah.
That's down and dirty, right?
Yeah, and I mean, it was, yeah.
But you don't anymore?
No, I don't do it anymore, man, and I'm not doing it.
Is it too much? Too much to handle?
Some of the stuff started to get a real rattle in it, too. I don't know where we were even getting it from in this country, but yeah, it started to make me feel like I was a mechanic or something.
So the thing you go back to...
His daughter said that he had a paradoxical reaction to benzos that caused increased anxiety. So why did he keep taking them to the point of being physically addicted? Anyone who believes anything that comes out of their mouths is an idiot.
Then it's alcohol for the most part.
Right, yeah, but what I want probably is cocaine, but I know that if I have a drink, then it'll be like, okay, well, I had a drink, then I can do this.
Is cocaine a stronger
oh, yeah.
up?
Yeah. Cocaine
So
will make
you're way up with cocaine more than anything else you can think of.
Cocaine will turn you into a damn owl, homie. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You'll be out on your own porch, you know, and you'll be your own street lamp. You're freaking.
And is that a good feeling? Well,
no,
it's a miserable feeling.
But you do it anyway, just like the guy you're saying with the scotch.
He just told President Trump that if he did cocaine, he would be your own.
Drugs are cringe.
His own street lamp, his own owl. Still my favorite interview that President Trump has ever given, because it was just so relatable, and it just feels good to hear something that sounds relatable. And also, you are always
glazing
for people, always, especially if you grew up like me, that overcome addiction. It's great to see Theo Von so clear-eyed and discussing that and maintaining a sense of humor. Anyways, just showing you that contrast, because I think it so clearly represents what's happening right now as we're starting to see this delta of opinions of people who are very angry and frustrated that people who can laugh like Joe Rogan and Dave Smith and Theo Von are being given a platform, while
the comedy assassins, the comedy marauders, the comedy conquistadors,
people who deem themselves experts and can tell us what's happening psychiatrically and what's happening
appeal to authority, cringe,
due to reports, are just annoying. I'm being honest, like literally, it's just so annoying to be preached at by these people.
Why do people say literally? It's literally. It's literally. It's literally not literally.
As if like their experiences are somehow more valid, or like we can't comprehend their experiences. Like there's just such a gap between people like Theo Von and the way that they live their lives without these fancy degrees. That's what it is. That's what we're really getting to the heart of. What was Jordan Peterson's rule number 6? Well,
I mean, there is a big fucking gap. Let's be real here. Theo Von, Jordan Peterson, what are we talking about here?
Well, it was set your house in perfect order before you criticize the world. And I would say that that is not a rule that he has attempted to follow. Because all he does for people who are engaged on X, and don't get me wrong, he will forever have boomers that support him. I'm not saying all, because some of them are very much on X and know what's going on, but people that are not like on social media accounts and don't see the various meltdowns and the way he speaks to people really think that Jordan Peterson is plugged in and that he's well put together. But actually, the inability to withstand any sort of pushback or criticism without completely losing it on people should be Jordan Peterson's Twitter bio. Mr. Clean Up Your Room needs to kind of clean up his Twitter feed. And that was kind of one of the things that I was pointing out. He was calling people psychopathic rats when he got angry.
Listen, You catch me on a bad day, I might go nuclear on Twitter as well. So he's a based schizo poster. What's not to love?
He talks about, being calm in moments of chaos. The second October 7th happened, he was on Twitter and he tweeted to Netanyahu, "Give him hell, enough is enough," and people just began looking at him differently, going...
Peterson does love Israel. It's almost like he works for the Daily Wire, which Candace used to work for as well.
Everything that you said in your book, you do not embody. Not even on your X feed, where you can execute some control. You're not live. You know what I mean? You could just put down the phone. And I obviously have been on the receiving end of this, had nothing but a fine relationship with Jordan Peterson. I opened for him years ago, actually, on his 12 Rules tour. And he
for as much shit as I give the left, the woke right is also pretty fucking cringe. Where they have these alliances and then they start eating each other. Like an Ouroboros when they step out of line.
Called me a pharisaical pretender. This is a real tweet because I said Christ is king. This is the one that Christ is king has broken so many people's brains. It's amazing. It's incredible why the declaration that Christ is king has broken so many people's brains.
So for those of you who don't know, Christ is king, it's just 3 words, is one-shotting people because the ADL has deemed it anti-Semitic and a rallying call for Christian nationalism. It's kind of like the OK sign.
I wasn't even speaking to him. I was speaking to somebody else. And I said, thank you for re-upping this most crucial conversation about Christ is king almost exactly a year later. And once again, during the season.
Guys, it's a dog whistle. And what do we know about dog whistles? I am the dog whistle. And everyone keeps blowing me.
Lent, after a year of thoughtfulness, I want you to know that I will never stop declaring it. Is anything about that tweet? Keep that back up. Anything about me saying that make you think that someone should be jumping in and calling you a pharisaical pretender? Well, that's what Dr. Jordan Peterson does on X. This is how he behaves on X. Okay, there's just long threads of him.
Candace Owens, a true pharisaical pretender. She vociferously proclaims her devotion to Christ for no other reason than to elevate her perceived status. Her outrage is designed not to shout the truth from the rooftops, build bridges, or make peace, but to subvert Christianity itself, which its new force to her own purposes. She's literally using God's name in vain. There are few more unforgivable sins. Yo, what if he's right, though? What if he's calling her out on her bullshit vociferously?
Him writing these poetry, literally it reads like poetry, but he's calling people names, ad hominem attacks. He writes, Candace Owens, a true pharisaical pretender. Again, this is a guy who has not asserted that Christ is anything in his life. He is not baptized, and he gets angry when people push him on what his religion is. She vociferously proclaims her devotion to Christ for no other reason than to elevate her perceived status. Her outrage is designed not to shout the truth from the rooftops, but to build bridges or make peace, but to subvert Christianity itself with its new force to her own purposes. She's literally using God's name in vain.
Oh, so now she switches to literally. Make it make sense.
There are a few more unforgivable sins. Okay. Or I just said Christ is king because there was a renewed attack on the phrase, which was being sponsored by Dr. Peterson. Dr. Peterson teamed up with the ADL and the NCRI to try...
Very, very cringe behavior. I'm not defending Doc, not defending JP on this one.
To label any political dissidents of theirs mentally ill. Okay, I think it's the thing that he's done that's been the most beyond the pale for me. For me, it's hang it up. I am not a fan of Dr. Jordan Peterson anymore because I see right through this. You'll recall, like I said, during that Lent, to him and 12 non-Christians, it was like 10 Jews and I think it was 2 other people who were, we didn't know what their background was, to state that Christ is king is a form of political extremism. I'm not kidding. Take a look. This was the, if you forgot, thy name in vain, how online extremists hijacked Christ is king. Utterly absurd to say, completely ridiculous. And you will note the NCRI actually is known for, and by the way, to be clear, like Jordan Peterson has now gone on tour.
All this shit is gay and fake.
Oh, yes, here at the Network Contagion Research Institute, the Congress of Christian Leaders, the Eagleton Institute of Politics, Miller Center on Policing and Community Resilience. It's a whole lot of glasses pushing.
Which is why he's trending again today, because he's trying to justify this report saying that, like, we can't say Christ is king, according to Jacob Zucker, Joel Finkelstein.
These are my favorite think tanks.
Rev Johnny Moore and Dr. Lee Jusum, Sonia Yanofsky and Alex Goldenberg, they got together and said, Gideon Führer, Simon Lazarus got together and said, you guys can't say Christ is king anymore. And Jordan Peterson
Don't forget about Anisha Jackdeep.
slapped his name on this. He starts the attack on Christ is king. Nobody said it. And then he's upset when people come back and are like, we're gonna still declare Christ is king. And he used my name in this report. He used Jack Posobiec's name in this report, Andrew Tate's name, and of course, Nick Fuentes' name, trying to pretend that this phrase was somehow extreme. And like I said, he's now taking that report public and doing rounds of propagandist media, calling people political psychopaths who say Christ is king. I'm not kidding. But of course, trying to make it sound like a lecture. Like he's just such a
Glazed Tate, once again. I'm telling you, it runs deep. I don't understand it.
learned man. This is him on Sean Hannity being very intellectual about it.
Well, I think the most important thing to do first is to draw a distinction between the political and the psychological and not to collapse them together. So imagine this. Imagine that there's a group of individuals, about 4% of the population, who have a set of personality characteristics.
She's trying everything her limited peasant mind can do to insult someone smarter than her.
That have been described as dark tetrad.
I prefer
So
Christ
they're
as God
Machiavellian.
anyway.
They use their language to manipulate. They're narcissistic. They want unearned social status and reputation. They're psychopathic, which makes them free of empathy.
So instead of dark triad, Peterson's going on about the tetrad. He's adding one more.
And parasitical and predatory. And they're sadistic. So they take
Sadism. That's the fourth.
positive delight in the unnecessary suffering of others. Now, those people also use false cries of victimization, let's say, to manipulate, and they're entitled. They seek vengeance when it's unwarranted, and they protest loudly and make very public cries for reparations that would be self-serving. Okay, now the way those people operate is they look for what patterns of belief form groups that they can infiltrate and then capitalize on. And that happens on the right. We did a report, the same group, on the use of Christ as king as a manipulative strategy by bad actors, hypothetically on the right. And this report identified the same sort of people on the left. But it's not primarily political.
Her faces are annoying. They're annoying because they're performative. It's like, wow. Get a load of this guy. It's like the meme of American Psycho, Patrick Bateman.
They're wolves in sheep's clothing who look for where there's power and value and then adopt those beliefs as a surface camouflage so that they can elevate their moral status. Now, and this has become worse in recent years as far as I'm concerned because the evolved
She's that person at the bottom of TikToks.
strategies that we have for dealing with these psychopathic types, psychopathic narcissistic types, don't work well online. And so the psychopaths can get away with their terrible manipulations online, and they can find like-minded people, and they can escape from any reputational consequences. And so there's always been psychopaths. Those are the Pharisees, for example, that Christ points to, the religious pretenders. Those are the people who use God's name in vain and claim moral virtue.
Oh my God, isn't he so crazy? He's so crazy, guys.
And even religious devotion. Well, all they're doing is
While he's just schizo-ranting, he's cooking.
feathering their own nests and furthering their own narrow interests. And the web, social media, anonymity enables them to organize and also hides them much more effectively. And this is a problem in religious organizations, it's a problem in political organizations, and it pathologizes the whole culture. You know, most people, 80% of Americans agree on virtually everything. And then there's these fringe people, and they're not political. They're psychopathological.
Imagine marrying someone in 8 days. I told you that happened.
Cloak themselves in political guise. And we all have to learn to distinguish between the political and the psychological. We're not good at it.
Man, imagine someone sent that in a text message. It's like super long. Man, how would you even respond to that? It's just ridiculous. All that over 3 words, Christ is king. What broke you? What are you doing? Has he realized how bizarre that all sounds? And I want you to really take the
I'm not fucking crazy. You're crazy, bucko.
measure and focus here of the words he's using. He's trying to diagnose dissidents who won't listen to him. You can see he's growing increasingly angsty, really trying to sell this to people. Like, you really got to watch out for these people. Ironically, he keeps bringing up the Pharisees. The Pharisees were people who did not follow Christ and who did not declare that Christ was king and who were behind.
Super long, but let me play the entire clip of him so I can juice my episode.
His persecution and did not therefore establish the fact
And
that
of all the clips to pick of JP, he actually sounded level-headed there. Now, I'm not agreeing with this whole Christ is king equals fascism bullshit, but clipping him in that context, it's weak.
they had faith in him. That would be you, okay, seeing yourself as a teacher. We're going to use this analogy, seeing yourself as a teacher who knows what's right and what's wrong, but also will not declare whether or not you yourself are a follower of Christ. That, like, I don't even understand how he thinks that he is fit to lecture Christians on what true Christianity is by teaming up with a large group of Jews. It makes entirely no sense.
All right. All right. Candace just scored some points. I'll give her that.
But the words he uses, Machiavellian, dark triad, psychopath,
Triad.
narcissism. Is that sounding familiar to you? Do you guys remember hearing those words before?
It's almost like he's a clinical psychologist. It's almost like that's been his vocabulary forever.
It's because the very same group that he teamed up with to do that report with, the NCRI, was behind the exact same language that was pushed in the media to describe people who were dissidents of the COVID vaccine. Okay, you don't remember this. I'm going to show it to you. Look at this. A contagion of institutional distrust, viral disinformation of the COVID vaccine, and the road to reconciliation.
Yeah, NCRI can hold this L. No, there's no debate here.
Here's another headline. The dark triad. Literally.
What the fuck is a triad? Dude, how do you get millions of followers?
Talks about. And COVID-19 vaccine hesitancy. The role of conspiracy beliefs and risks.
I'm going to start butchering words on purpose to engagement farm.
Perception. This is an actual excerpt from this published document. And the media went crazy and said, oh, you're actually a psychopath if you don't get the vaccine. Oh, if you don't listen to the government and roll up your sleeve and get the vaccine, and you're like going to visit your grandma, not letting her die alone, you're a psychopath. Do you guys remember these articles? It was like literally one day we woke up and it was like, look at your friend who won't get the vaccine, they're psychos. This is an excerpt from that publication. It says, with the spread of the coronavirus disease pandemic, the mass vaccination plan represents the primary weapon to control the infection curve. Unfortunately, vaccine hesitancy also spread out worldwide.
Let's stay on target here. Let's finish up this JP segment. I understand.
This led to exploring the critical factors that prevent vaccination from improving the efficacy of vaccine campaigns. In the present study, the role of the dark triad.
There's no way. There's no way.
Psychopathy, Machiavellianism, and narcissism in vaccine hesitancy was investigated. This is literally doing what they just did a couple of years ago.
Dark triad. Dark triad Philion. That's me.
To people that were like, yeah, no, I'm good.
Sorry, triad.
People like me. I was like, I'm actually good. I'm not going to, you rolling out this vaccine, I'm not going to get it. And I'm going to encourage people to make sure they do their research because you only have one body. And then we get proven right. We get proven right. And all the experts who participated in this and wrote these articles and tried to explain away to people why you got to trust the experts were proven wrong. So, yeah, if that is all sounding
so, yeah, get fucked, liberals.
Familiar to you, the idea that you can turn it into a pathology. People disagreeing with you. If you disagree with me ever, if anybody in the comments disagrees with me, I gotta tell you guys, it's a pathology. There's something wrong with you. You're a sociopath. You're a psychopath. You're like Jeffrey Dahmer. What? Well, just so you guys know, that's a Soviet tactic. It's a Soviet tool of repression. For those of you that joined the book club, wait until we get into Sigmund Freud, okay? Because what he is actually doing is he is being
I mean, I don't disagree with her on the over pathology. Fuck. Now I sound retarded. The over pathologization of our vernacular. How's that tongue twister for you?
Perfect psychologist or psychiatrist. That's what he is modeling himself after Sigmund Freud. Okay. They developed these Soviet-like tactics to control the masses, to socially engineer our behavior.
JP is a Soviet sleeper agent. He's trying to psyop you. Communism.
Make people think there was something wrong with them if they didn't conform to groupthink. Showing you this right here. Psychiatry as a tool for coercion and
always gives me trouble.
Post-Soviet countries, it reads. This is a study that was done by the European Parliament, which describes that between the period of the 1960s and the 1980s in the USSR, psychiatry was turned into a tool of repression. Soviet psychiatry was cut off from the world psychiatry and developed its own highly institutional and biologically oriented course, providing at the same time a scientific justification for declaring dissidents mentally ill. That is what Jordan Peterson is doing, okay? He is unable to win the argument on just him being able to debate. And so he's now essentially saying, he did an appearance on Joe Rogan and said the same thing, anyone who disagrees with me is mentally ill. It's dangerous Soviet-type thinking.
Based.
Which maybe makes sense when you weigh it against the bizarre collection of Soviet-era paintings of Vladimir Lenin, which Jordan Peterson has spoken about publicly that he collects in his house. Like him and his daughter have spoken about how they've got like so many paintings of Vladimir Lenin in their house, and she grew up.
She gives mean girl energy. Like they're just weird. They're just fucking weird. I just don't like them. They're just stinky.
With Vladimir Lenin paintings, and I believe that he even named his daughter after Gorbachev, if I'm correct. This is Michaela Peterson talking about growing up with hundreds of Soviet paintings in Dr. Peterson's house, her father's house. Take a listen.
What was it like growing up with Jordan as your dad? Imagine if your entire childhood you spent watching Jordan Peterson YouTube videos. My dad is really a lot like he is on YouTube. If you've seen any of his lectures or looked at his old...
That's my daughter. That's my daughter, Michaela, by the way.
Courses. That was kind of what dinner table conversation was like. I learned a lot about psychology. I know a lot about personality. I didn't know it was weird until I was like 24 or until he got famous. And then I realized it was weird. We had 37 different colors of paint in our house, over 100 paintings. All the walls were completely covered in Soviet art. I once had a Lenin painting fall on me while I was sleeping.
Like I said, weird. He's described it as he got interested in 2001 and began collecting a bunch of eBay paintings that were being sold.
I mean, God forbid a man has his fucking hobbies. We live in a slop world. I just want to feast my eyes on something beautiful.
And that's how he formed a collection, because he was interested in the cycle of every 15 years, something coming back into relevancy. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that stands for. All I know is that...
Yeah, you wouldn't fucking get it because you're low IQ. You wouldn't last 1 minute in my fucking noggin.
You should be alarmed by Jordan Peterson teaming up with the ADL, who are speech censors, to try to justify people, or at least trying to...
Dude, I saw a fake meme of the ADL defining goy beam. The goy beam. Which is essentially a incredibly powerful space laser.
Diagnose, rather, people who are just simply declaring that Christ is king. And you should be even more alarmed by the fact that nobody said it.
The right will say Jordan Peterson is getting corrupted by the ADL. And the left will say the ADL is being corrupted by JP.
When they dropped this report.
It's the duality of man.
It this Lent season. And now he's doing a tour trying to divide people politically by saying, well, those are political psychopaths. You don't want to be like the Christians. You don't want to be like the Christians. You don't want to be like the Catholics. You don't want to be like these group of people who think Christ is king. And I do want to also say this, because at root of this is his bizarre obsession with Nick Fuentes. There's others, like they are like in a bubble, and you just have to recognize that most people in the world...
I like collecting grotesque, macabre paintings. Does that make me weird?
Don't know who Nick Fuentes is, but these people, the Seth Dillons, the Joel Berrys, they obsess over everything he does, and they believe everyone in the world is watching and doing whatever Nick Fuentes says, and he's gotten under their skin.
Glaze.
That's the reality. These people are being
Nick Fuentes glaze. Works at Krispy Kreme, head glazer.
Accounts, and they're now spending real money.
Imagine glazing another man.
To try to control and censor our speech. And it's just not going to work, okay? You're not going to tell...
One could argue she has a bizarre obsession with JP.
Listen, according to Sloponomics, you either farm or get farmed. She's just farming. She's farming JP.
Tell Christians how to behave. You're not a Christian. You're not going to tell, especially on this day, the Feast of St. George, who was martyred for refusing to back down on his faith. You're not going to tell Christians. That phase is over. Christians are going to start standing up for our faith. I'm going to be one of them. And to the extent that you have a problem with me declaring that Christ is king because he is and forever will be, then I am going to be a thorn in your side. And that's all I'm going to say about that topic. All right, guys.
That was a reference.
Remind you about
that was a based reference. Thorn in my side. Blow it out your ass, bucko. I don't really have anything other to say other than you're a fucking lobster and JP on top.